The word revitalization is new to me, yet notably uses the prefix re, like in the words rejuvenation, revival, resurgence, relearn, and even reconciliation. It stresses the importance of endangered or dying languages and emphasizes the points of undoing a past action. Ninoma revitalization bima chihewewin agata ogawi mau aski aga oma kitanani katonwak aga kina kim meow the kiskonama suwin. To quote, I think we have to learn our language to understand again with the definition of words, what they really mean. We are shortening our languages. So that's a quote from an elder of Darlene Miller. So to go back to me, what revitalization should start with Mother Earth or with your mother tongue and who you are in your body as the cultural identity. However, you must recognize that you must recognize revitalization starts with your commitment and activity. Participate in class. Do not be afraid to try and take time to teach yourself. Learning is a process of asking questions, making mistakes, and learning from them. Agoma bimachi wewin revitalization. Gina katuta mason. Kana kastatse. Kigetsimo. Agane agataka kiskenoma gusun. Agatamina kakaskatan Ininimowin. You started your journey in language revitalization with something as simple as relating one word to everyday situations. Agataka masistan, that's where you're gonna start. Uma pisis piak itewin words. Get up, das goods, the weneskayan, get up, weneska, wane kai tau kutak inino, weneskak, get up, kiki weneskan, did you get up, kiki asana weneskau, is that person waking up? So we're going to be adding more into that one word. Agomamina gasikwe, wash your face. And that's a command. Gasikwe, wash your face. And then nigi gasikwan, I washed my face. Kiki gasikwan, you washed your face. Gasikewak, they washed their face. And then so on. Taskutsinama. Nagonama kotak mitso. It's a command. Mitso, eat. I will eat nide mitson. Gi mitson. Ne mitson. Mitsoanan. Let's go eat. Okay? Agata gamasistan. Soon with repetitions and practices, you will take those words and slowly build onto the language structure. With time, you will move from words to phrases to sentences to conversations. You will introduce the language to your family and pass it along with new generations. And that itself is an action to revitalize. Agataga mustaga masistan agane omasis the snagan agane gabits kiskonomasuin mistaheka karakastan oma Ininimowin kakastan. Please note, good pronunciation in your second language learning does not require to speak like you have grown up with the language your entire life. Everyone has a different national accent, a different register, a tone of voice. What you need to do is say the word correctly in your own natural voice. Agata nama Ininimowin kina danse dansi sa ewiyamien agatapogo gina ta kiskanoma suin Taminopano. I am going to help you train yourself to listen and reproduce the modern Ininimowin pronunciations. I'm here to guide you as a language keeper and keep you reflect upon who you want to be as a speaker. And proper practices comes attention, respect that you will be deserve as in your identity. Aloma nina nagiskonoma tapet tamanoma Ininimowin koyas ta yamien agagista kamaskausin homa Ininimowin. Ego sa.
Dan say kita tamaskata nawa anos kai kisagak. Kimberly Halcrow Disningason. I welcome you all today. My name is Kimberly Halcrow. I'm originally from Norway House, Kinosao Sipi Gillam, Manitoba. So I live in Gillam, Manitoba right now. The only reason why we moved to Gillam is my husband Ninabem skill Manitoba Hydro. So my husband works for Manitoba Hydro there, so he wanted to reside to Gillam to work there and bring up the family. So as we moved to Gillam, so Gillam is a very diverse community. So once that my children started school, I was an education assistant back home in Norway House for about 13 years. And then in between we had the children, and then we moved to Gillam. So being an education assistant was a rewarding job to work with kids with special needs. And then not only that, that's where I had a few students that could only spoke Cree. So I had an opportunity to sit there with 2 students that only spoke Cree. And then not too long ago, as years went by, I ended up meeting with that student, and he ended up talking to me in English. I said, oh, hi. So he still hasn't lost it, but it was just different and nice to hear him to say that. But at the same time, I wish he would just said it in Cree, but he did later on when we came across our paths again. So anyways, going back to living in Gillam, being diverse, I applied for a job. So the job was at Frontier School Division, Gillam School, where there was a job opening for educational assistant. So as I was looking forward to going back to the job that I love, working with students. So when my interview came, but on my resume I wrote that I speak Cree. So I never thought of that would be a big moment of them reading my resume where I just wrote speak Cree. So once the interview came and went there, and they said, well, I see that, you're applying for the education assistant program, job. And I said, yeah. And it says here that you speak Cree. And I said, yeah. Do you speak fluently? And I was really honest with her, and I said, well, I grew up hearing the language Cree. That's my first language. My father still speaks to me in Cree to this day, and I did Cree classes. I have Cree in me every day, that I speak a Cree word every day or a sentence or talk to my dad. And I said, yeah, I speak Cree. And then she says, well, can you teach it? Teach it? I said, what do you mean teach it? Like in the classroom? And then when she said that, yeah, teach in the classroom, and it got me thinking back of all the Cree language teachers that I had, like late Byron Apatagan has had a lot of influence, role model me of him teaching us Cree. And I was sitting there daydreaming about teaching Cree. Wow, that would be amazing, but where would I start? I said to myself before I turned and accepted the job. And she was so surprised and not honored, but surprised and like with a relief of, oh, okay, great. And I took the job. I said, yes, okay, I'll teach Cree. I'll teach Ininimowin in Gillam school. So she goes, well, how long do you need to take to get ready, to get started? Because school was already starting a week after. It was already a week in, and they were still looking for a Cree language teacher. And then I came along, so I said, yeah, okay, I'll take it. But at first I was kind of hesitant. I didn't take it right away. And I said, well, can I think about it? And so they never asked me about the education assistant job part, but they said, yeah, we'll give you a day and give us back tomorrow. Get back to us tomorrow. So I went home and I talked to my ninapim, and he looks at me, he goes, Kim, they're offering you the job. It's right there. There's not going to be anybody else. They desperately need a Cree language teacher. And I said, oh yeah, hey, like, wow. So anyways, the next morning I phoned, and that was our discussion. And I said, okay, I accept your position for me to teach the Cree language. Oh, that's great, Miss Halcrow, that's great. Okay, we'll come in and we'll show you the Cree language room, which was great. And so we went in, and I looked around and I'm like, okay, where do I begin? And as days and weeks went on, and for me to look at the old resources, and at the same time I was like, okay, I went back into my past being in the Cree classes of my past teachers, and I thought, oh, this was fun. Okay, I'll do this. And I asked, what grades do we have? And we have kindergarten to grade it was grade 3 to grade 8, and then it went down to kindergartens to grade 6, because the goal at the time is to have the younger generation to absorb the language. And it's been quite a journey, because this is my 6th year teaching the Cree language at Gillam School. And as years went by, I got more confidence, I got more resources, I added more to the language. I've been adding a lot of like arts and crafts, singing, the cultural traditions. I even put in the powwow and jingle dress and the smudging, and it opened a lot of eyes and more respectful to the cultural. And so the children really enjoy the Cree language, and it got to the point where the kids would take over the Cree, where I would just walk in, knock on the door, I have a special knock, and they know it's me. And they'll say, oh, it's Miss Halcrow, it's Cree Time. And I'll walk in, and they start to greet me, and they say some of those songs that I've shared with you throughout our journey here into our language topics. And ninanaskomitin anos kagipet-tuin. I am very thankful that you're here to hear me today. So we're going to go into more depth of the history and more ways of how we feel about our language and where our language is heading to, what is being done, and in today's day of our, how would you say, in this 20th century. It's 2022. That's 6 years ago I was didn't even think my language would be this. I didn't think my language would be very important. And I was told that I was a language keeper, and just to keep going on to what I know. Okay? All right. So first of all, when I first started my journey, I always wondered where did the word Cree come from? And then the word Ininimowin always came to mind, and said, but I always thought Cree was Cree, because I didn't know that the word Ininimowin was the actual word for Cree. So Cree is an English word. It came from the French fur traders. So Christinus is how it's pronounced, but the Cree, K-R-I, has turned into Cree, so that's where that Cree English word came from. And then the Cree we call Ininimowin, and the Cree people we call them Ininok. So before I go on, so that's part of the history where you're probably wondering where the Cree word came from and how we translate it to Ininimowin, or Nihewewin is another word that's new to me, that Nihewewin is another way of saying Cree. So, but me growing up, it's always been Ininimowin. It's because I'm an Inino, so I'm a Cree person. So let's do what I call a self-check, where am I going to learn Cree? How am I going to feel about the language? Where do I hear the language? And you got to find ways to live in the moment and live and talk the language, because every day the language is very descriptive. So nowadays, the Cree language, some words have been shortened, which I was told. So we'll get into that a little bit later. And so what I wanted to do is maybe give you some, like the question, how do we feel about our language? Okay, so how do you feel about your language? So question yourself on these ones. Do you mostly speak English? Do you speak your native language? Do you speak it at home? Is it important to you? Is it important to your children? Is your language use activity in your community? So if you answer those questions to yourself, that's where I think, because I find a lot of people that want to start Cree, I don't know where to start, or I sound funny, and what does that mean? Like, so if you answer those questions, it'll give you a direction of more of, okay, I need to speak more Cree, I got to do it at home. Indicate, yeah, it's very important to me because that's who I am. It's important to my children because it was taken away in residential school, and to bring, let's take it up, bring it back to school, and it's your language used in your community. Okay. And then we're going to go to, are we living our language every day? So you're going to question yourself, do we hear or see our language too? So where do we hear and see our language? Okay, home, community centers, workplaces, schools, church, schools, and ceremonies. So those are places that you could go to learn the Cree language. And with home, as with me, when we went back to the common verb words, it started from there, and I'm slowly putting it in. I'll say something in Cree first, and they'll say, oh, what did you say, Mom? I'm sorry, can you say it again? And then I'll say it in Cree, and then descriptive Cree, and then they're starting to get it, and I'll say it in English. So it has to come from home. If you have it in you, please just take it and start from home. So on what occasions do we hear and see our language? So we have family gatherings, daily chores, shopping in stores, play and recreation, ceremony, social gathering, radio and television, cultural gatherings. I don't know if we have newspaper anymore, but in this day and age where you could hear language in movies, you hear it in shows, It's slowly coming into the movies where they're making movies. For instance, for example, The Frontier, where they have a whole storyline of the fur traders coming into Hudson Bay and the tribes that got together, and they do have some of the language when they show the tribes in action in the movie. So, and then when do I use my language? Okay. Thinking, entertaining, showing emotion, raising babies with your partner, parents, grandparents, grandchildren, and with friends. And like I said, if your grandparents, like your Gimisuma ka Gugum, they're still alive, please, I'm sure they have the language in them. Go to them and take a recorder. Ask them questions. Tell them to give you stories of growing up. So, because a lot of times I hear the word, we have to bank our language, meaning that we have to take this technology that we have today and record. And then bank it, and then take it and use it. Is like what we're doing here today with me showing you what I know, what's been passed on to me. Okay. So, like I said, go to the elders, even to your parents, and I'm pretty sure your parents, aunts, uncles, older cousins, family members that have the mother tongue, that have the language in them. Go and ask them. Don't be afraid to sit down and say, how do you say this? How do you say that? Yeah, that's where it starts, by asking. Doesn't hurt to ask, right? So by banking the language, if we don't bank that language, terminology, if we don't bank all that terminology, we have no more language. So let's start building that up. We learn the language through everyday living. So if you establish yourself, say for instance, you're doing the laundry, little simple things to help the children. So say pagan. So you have your white paganasta. Paganasta means you're going to separate this and that. So you have your dark clothes, the black clothes, and colored clothes. So, and that's just a term right there, paganasta. And they know that right away. Okay, we're going to have to separate our laundry. Okay. Also, with the other terms that we did, like do a morning routine, weniska, demitso, gigigasi kwegan, did you wash your face? Go eat. Asana. Okay, let's go to school. Asai. So how can we keep our language vibrant and alive? So I'm just gonna go into the some terms on how can we keep our language vibrant and alive. So the one term is use teams. So the language team may consist of elders, leaders, often children, the community, language teachers, advocates, and outside resource people such as linguists and curriculum developers. So that means like find yourself an elder, have people come together and start, we need to learn and communicate and start from there. Using immersion, speaking the language. So nowadays in school, they are revitalizing the native language by thinking creatively, cultural tradition, communication, and the only way to do so is by speaking it. So there is today called immersion schools, where the fluent language teacher has established straight Cree. Like with me, like I said, Cree is at the school is very diverse. and I hope to make that goal of it being immersed one day, but I am just teaching the terminologies and sentences and feelings and colors and numbers and singing, and it goes on and on, because every day you live every move or every action, there's always going to be a Cree word for that. Like I said about the laundry, paganasta. Let's go do laundry, paganasta. Put them separately. Being family orientated. So basically, put in those words again. Say, okay, let's go to some communities, do set up immersion camps or language camps. Go to those. Setting goals. What are your goals? Like what we did in the beginning of this when I asked the questions of when do you use your language? How do you feel about your language? Where do we hear and see our language? Well, what's the occasions do we hear and see our language? Okay, so be setting goals. Keep moving forward. Build up, not out. Okay. So balancing the old and the new, which is balancing the old and the new. So the old, I don't want to say balancing the old and the new, because our language was always oral tradition. It was spoken. I wasn't given a book to like give an instruction how we are today, where we emphasize first person, second person, third person, singular, plural, inanimate. Those weren't taught in that way growing up in the language. It was very descriptive, where nahasta, put that away. But it wasn't repeated with English. To say nahasta, my mom would give me something and it was mine, and she would say nahasta, and then I would go put it away where it's properly put away. Nahasta, put it in my drawer. And today, the new today is where technology is used. We will continue this the next episode. Dance get the damaskate now anoskagisika Kim Halcrow Negasun. Before I add some more on some stories and legends, I would like to acknowledge the eagle feather that I have in front of me. The reason why I hold it, it just gives me to focus my energy on my eagle feather. As you can see, like I stroke it now and then, or just hold it really tight. And the other thing that I use sometimes is the rock, asini. So asinisak, we call them the grandfather rock. And taking that rock in your hand and putting on all your energy into it and talking to it and putting it back on the land. It really helps when you have something in your hand if you were to go present, and it really helps you a lot to focus. Okay, so if you're wondering why I'm holding it, so there you go. So we're gonna go on into a teaching lesson, and it has to do with the red willow. So red willow was used at the time to discipline children. So, and I have this legend by late Byron Apatagan, and his legend goes by as in, so many years ago, two young people married and began a happy life together. So both had spent their childhood days with parents who had given them love, guidance, and discipline. They learned to live by these teachings. So this married couple, both of them were brought up so when they had a good life, so they were taught to love and guidance and discipline and live by these teachings. So not long after they got married, and they had a beautiful daughter was born to them. So these new parents were very proud of their daughter. They gave her love, care, and comfort, like the way they did. So once they gave her love, care, and comfort, the girl grew up strong and healthy. She was always happy. They loved her. She was always happy and loved her parents very much. But it got to the point where one day, however, her character began to change. She became more demanding for things she did not really need. She cried when her parents refused to give her things she wanted. So even worse, she became more disobedient and did not want to help around the home. So once this behavior escalated, the parents started to like, oh, what are we going to do? And how are we going to discipline our child here? Because she's not wanting to obey and listen to us and to have the bimatisoin. So anyways, the parents became very sad and worried. So they're stressing how to deal with their daughter. They're trying to help her. So they had given her everything she wanted to have, but that still didn't matter. They loved their child, and not once had they punished her since she was born. So there was no discipline in her upbringing whatsoever. So once things got worse, she became sick. So their daughter became sick one day. So many people came and tried to help, but it was no use because the child got really, really sick. So a few days later, the girl had passed away. And so friends and relatives came over in grief with the family. But on the day the girl was buried at a nearby woods, a strange thing happened. After the man had buried the girl's body in the ground, and this is where the red willow comes in, right? So the child has been buried in the ground, and one of the hands appeared out of the grave, and it waved. So while it was waving, she was crying. So she was wanting her mom and dad. So when this hand was waving back and forth, and the crying voice of the girl could be heard from below. So the young parents were terrified. They didn't know what to do because this young, their daughter that passed away is being restless. She's not resting, or she wanted more of the things that she wanted. So that's why, I think that's why her hand came out like she wasn't disciplined. There was something there that wasn't done before she passed away. So some of the people who had attended the burial went away because they were scared. But nearby, an older woman watched the commotion. She understood why that was happening. This elder, I guess it was, she made her way towards the young parents, stopped near them, and held their hands. So the elder told her that you have loved and cared and given comfort to your child, but not once did you ever punish her for things she did wrong while she was with you. Now her spirit is uneasy and will not rest. Therefore, both of you must find a willow and punish the hand until it goes away, and the crying will also stop. So, sige, so the elder, she explained to them why the child was crying and not resting, and they need to get that wet red willow to unease her spirit and for her to rest. So the heartbroken couple were more afraid. Obediently, the father found a willow. So the father went and began to get that willow and began to hit the hand. He started whipping the hand, and the hand began to move faster, and the crying became louder. And soon he was tired, so the hand didn't go away. So dad did it. So mom had to come around, which was so hard for the mom to do. So the mom came and did the same thing. So the young mother took the willow and punished the hand. While she was beating the hand, it disappeared into the ground, and the crying disappeared. The old woman held the young couple close together and told them not to cry. She did not need to say any more because the young parents now understood. So the teaching of that to me is we have to guide our children the right way, give them the minimum matasawin, and not to spoil them. In other words, don't give them what they want, give them what they need. Show them life skills, like with the Cree common words that we did at the beginning. Teach those words. Those are life skills, like to clean, gasige, ganamato, and ganakaswase. And like those are very important teachings, and for them to hear the language, and don't be afraid to have them do what they need to do in life. Alright, so we're going to come upon a legend at Sumano Anapil, trickster guy Don Anapil, named Wisiget Jack. So Wisiget Jack has come a long ways with a lot of legends, how things came to be in humor or lesson, and how things came to be, like the rabbit and wapus, and in this case I'm going to talk about the loon, Wisiget Jack. So Wisiget Jack was the being that would walk on earth and relates to the animals and land. So anyways, Wisiget Jack was walking along the river, so that it was a very dry summer. So the berries were dry, the fishes were in the bottom, so he wasn't able to fish or pick berries because it was hot. So anyways, he was hungry and wondered what he could eat for supper. On it, he started seeing these ducks, sisipuk, and the geese, niskuk, and the other waterfowl swimming on the other side, while out of range of his bow and arrow. So he couldn't use his bow and arrow to get the ducks that he wanted to have to eat. So he sat there thinking, oh, how am I going to get these ducks now and the geese to eat, the loon, duck, and geese. And so all in the while he was thinking of what's a good supper a duck or a goose would make. While he was sitting there, he had an idea. So he called them. He goes, oh, I'm going to show them a new dance. So anyways, he called the birds, saying, my brothers and sisters, he called, come over to this side. I want to show you a new dance. So like I said, he had a relationship with the animals. He was able to talk to them. So anyways, so the birds, the Benesi Sakal, came around him, and he said, I'm going to show you a new dance. Come closer. And so that's his trickster side is coming out. So he said, come closer. I won't hurt you. I just want to show you a new dance. So they waddled up out of the water, right? And Wisiget Jack told them to dance the new dance. While you dance, he said, close your eyes and don't peek. Then the ducks and the geese closed their eyes and started dancing. So before long, the other waterfowl, meaning the other birds, joined in with their eyes closed too. This was just what Wisiget Jack wanted. While they all danced, he started wrangling their necks. So all these birds are making these noises, and he managed to get a few of the birds and started trying to get the birds. So, but the loon was the most suspicious, and so he peeked and see what was happening. And then the loon started saying, Wisiget Jack is killing us. Wisiget Jack is trying to get us, the loon cried. And then so the ducks and the geese and all the other birds opened their eyes and flew once they saw, but not the loon. The loon, he had trouble getting off the ground, so he started running toward the river. So how you see the loon today, he had trouble getting off the ground, so he started running towards the river. So Wisiget Jack ran after him, but he could not grab hold of him Instead, he kicked the poor loon in the rear end and dislocated his hips. This is the very day loons have a difficult time walking on the ground. That's why they spend most of the time in the water. So they're not like the geese and the ducks where they wobble around. So that's why you don't hardly see the loons walk on the ground, because Jack kicked his butt and dislocated his hips. But this is another story where how the Wapos came to be. He did the same thing with this time he called the four-legged, because in this story we have the flyers, and then when he invited the four-legged animals, so you had the beaver, the weasel, the otter, and you have the rabbit, and for some reason he had the owl with him that day. The owl was curious that day to see how he did the same thing with the four-legged, where, oh, come on, I'm going to show you a new dance, I'm going to show you a new song. So while all that singing and dancing was going on, he was trying to get one of these animals to eat. But he came across with the Wapos, because at one time the Wapos was believed to look like a dog, so it had short legs and short ears. And when the singing was going on, the owl was because he told everybody to close their eyes. Jack told them to close their eyes, and then once they started singing and dancing, and Jack grabbed this Wapos. So while he was holding the Wapos, and Owl was getting curious. I was, oh boy, this Jack is getting into things again. So with the owl, the owl is gifted to turn its head. So when it turned his head and opened his eyes, and he warned everybody, like, oh, he got the rabbit. Everybody go! He's trying to get us, trying to eat us. And then so the owl warned everybody. So while this commotion was going on, everybody left. All the animals, the four-legged animals, took off, except for the rabbit. So when Jack got hold of his utagaya, his ears, and then miskata, his legs, and then he kept, while he was holding it, the Wapos just kept moving and moving. So each time he kept moving, he was stretched out. So by the time Wishigatsa let him go, he was able to jump fast and go faster, because his hind legs look like snowshoes now, and then his ears are long and floppy. So that's why you look at a rabbit now. That's how a rabbit came to be. And with the hind legs for the rabbit, I don't know why I consider them as snowshoes, because their hind legs really help them on the snow. So that's survival of how they survive on a snow, like we do on snowshoes. So that's my story on how the rabbit came to be, and how the loon wobbles, and our trickster Jack.